Late at night, I delivered red wine to the hotel for the CEO. In the lobby, I ran into his good friend Harrison Thomas. He lazily smiled at me. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, but an ex-girlfriend showing up isn't appropriate. Let me deliver it for you. But later, I found out that the CEO had wanted to ask me to get back together that day. Harrison Thomas is just here to snatch the opportunity. Mr. Thomas, this isn't appropriate, is it? As I said this, I had already cheerfully handed the bag I was carrying to Harrison Thomas. This red wine came in a wooden box, and it was incredibly heavy. I had been carrying it all the way, and my hand was already marked with 2 red lines from the strain. At that moment, he lazily tossed the keys to his McLaren to the valet, a cigarette dangling from his mouth, and strode toward me. Under the warm lights of the lobby, his diamond earring sparkled brilliantly, as dazzlingly handsome as he was. I couldn't help but click my tongue in my mind. This guy really knows how to be this handsome. How many romantic debts did you accumulate during those years back home? Wipe your drool, little assistant. He looked at me with a half-smile, then naturally took the bag of red wine from my hand. He instinctively weighed it in his hand, paused for a moment, and his smile faded. Noticing his displeased gaze lingering on my reddened palm, I cautiously hid my hands behind my back. Is it heavy? Mr. Thomas, maybe I should take it. He didn't respond to me. Squinting, he took the last drag of his cigarette, and smoke drifted from his thin lips, blurring his inscrutable expression. Natalie Lawson, do you really like Daniel Foster that much? Even if he treats you like this, you still can't live without him, is that it? Of course not. My name is Natalie Lawson, the daughter of the Foster family's housekeeper and nanny, and Daniel Foster's personal assistant. I was mockingly referred to by Daniel Foster's socialite fiancée, Linda, as the Foster family's houseborn child. This is a derogatory term, but the poor have many hardships in this world. I have reasons that force me to stay with the Foster family. That's why Daniel Foster dares to bully me like this without fear. His methods include, but are not limited to, knowing I'm allergic to mangoes yet making me drink mango sago dessert from who knows where. He asked me to prepare a low-cut dress to accompany him to a business dinner, but when he saw me wearing that dress, he scowled and told me to get lost. He demanded that my phone be on 24/7 and that I answer his calls within 3 seconds, and so on. The list of grievances is endless. Just like today, at exactly 12 o'clock, I was sleeping soundly when his phone call woke me up, trembling with fear. I reflexively jumped out of bed. When I answered the phone, he only coldly said, "Go to the wine cellar and get 2 bottles of good wine, then come to room 8008 at S Hotel. Today is the day Linda returns to City A after concluding her overseas concert tour." The two of them, perhaps feeling that absence makes the heart grow fonder, have quite romantically prepared to share a little drink to enhance the mood. You two are indeed very affectionate, but your affection is disturbing my sleep. 15 minutes, S Hotel is about 7 or 8 kilometers from my home. Is it really that urgent? Holding the phone that had gone black after being hung up, I let out a long sigh and finally couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh in the darkness. Fate plays tricks on people. Who would have thought that Daniel Foster and I once had a secret, innocent campus romance? But now, I find myself having to personally deliver wine late at night for my first love and his fiancée. The dignity of adulthood allows me to feel a pang of bitterness in my heart for about 10 seconds. 10 seconds later, my heart settled back into a still pond, and I jogged to the underground garage to drive to the wine cellar and fetch the wine. Perhaps this is the sorrow of a corporate drone who never rests all year round. The next day when I went to work, Harrison Thomas was actually there too. When I pushed the door open, what I saw were the backs of Daniel Foster and Harrison Thomas, both dressed in suits and standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, seemingly harmonious, but upon closer inspection, the vibe doesn't quite feel right. Whenever the two of them stand together, it often reminds me of our school days. With these two top-tier young masters shining brightly at school, there was also me, the resentful nanny's daughter, and the socialite Linda, fully loaded with all the trimmings. It can be called China's own version of the heirs. Hearing someone enter, the two turned around in unison, one beaming with a smile, the other icy cold. "Our little assistant is here." The one beaming with a smile was Harrison Thomas. Harrison Thomas was a person hard to figure out. Borrowing the evaluation from a female classmate in high school who had confessed to him multiple times and been rejected, it probably goes something like this. Don't be fooled by Harrison Thomas's flirtatious and frivolous eyes. In reality, he doesn't have anyone in them at all. I wholeheartedly agree with that. On the surface, he always appears careless and indifferent. In fact, he is a scheming person. Even if Daniel Foster came, he would be a naive and innocent one in front of him. I let out a strange mustered my courage, and walked up to Daniel Foster. Mr. Foster, what can I do for you? Daniel Foster was enveloped in a heavy, oppressive atmosphere and questioned, did you not come yesterday because of Harrison Thomas? That's right, I straightened my back. Anyway, Harrison Thomas is here. He'll cover for me, so I'm not worried at all. Because yesterday I ran into someone at the door. A smack sound cut off the rest of my words. Following the sound, I saw that it was Harrison Thomas, who had been leaning against the table flipping through a magazine, throwing it onto the table. Everyone is afraid when Daniel Foster gets angry, but Harrison Thomas, who is his equal, doesn't take it seriously. Harrison Thomas smiled calmly, exuding an air of unyielding composure, yet when he looked at Daniel Foster, a sharp, inexplicable intensity flashed in his eyes. Daniel Foster, don't ask, I know what you're trying to do. I remember you promised me you would treat her well. Clearly, you broke that promise. If you can't take good care of her, then I'll do it. Oh ho, there's some drama, a classic love triangle showdown between two men fighting over one woman. My internal alarm bells were ringing loudly as I pricked up my ears to eavesdrop intently. Upon hearing this, Daniel Foster's expression instantly darkened. He glanced at me with an ambiguous look before turning his gaze back to Harrison Thomas. Are you pointing fingers at me? Just offering some guidance. Harrison Thomas curled the corner of his lips into a smile, his tone already tinged with a hint of anger. I'm pointing you in the right direction. Don't provoke her. Daniel Foster frowned and reminded him, this has nothing to do with you. She doesn't like you, maybe not in the future. This tense standoff, like a battlefield of gods, got my blood pumping, and I couldn't help but feel that the trip was worth it. I mentally brainstormed to sort out the relationships between the characters. When did Harrison Thomas start liking Linda? Back in middle school. Linda was the classical goddess of our school. She could play the guzheng and perform ethnic dances. Who wouldn't call her the campus belle, except for Harrison Thomas? At every cultural performance, while other boys were drooling, he was the only one who would curl his lip in disdain and say to me, damn, I can't stand people who show off. Natalie Lawson, wouldn't it be much cooler if you went up and performed a set of military boxing instead of this lifeless dance? It's just so straightforward. So I'm really curious, since he genuinely disliked Linda back then, what happened that made him do a complete 180-degree turn in his attitude after returning to China? Just as I was busy trying to recall where things had gone wrong, Harrison Thomas quietly drifted to my side. He nudged me with his elbow and bluntly prompted, little assistant, do you think I'm right? Well, how should I put it? I think everyone is equal when it comes to matters of the heart. And everyone has a chance. Besides, a woman's heart is something that can't be forced anyway, so everyone should just relax. After thinking for a moment, I gave a very diplomatic reply. I'm caught in the middle, torn between two sides. I can't afford to offend either Daniel Foster or Harrison Thomas. In that case, can't I just play it safe and keep both sides happy? What's going on, Natalie Lawson? You've quietly defused another crisis. You're really quick on your feet, aren't you? I secretly rejoiced in my heart, my eyes wandering aimlessly, only to meet Daniel Foster's deep, pond-like gaze. It was cold, -16 degrees. I averted my gaze and took a sharp breath. Beside me, Harrison Thomas was smiling quite happily, his lips curling. He even watched the commotion without any concern, clapping his hands and leisurely strolling over to me. All that remained in sight was a broad-shouldered, narrow-waisted figure, blocking Daniel Foster's intense gaze. Natalie, you're really insightful, thank you. Can you please stop stirring up trouble? Just as I was feeling awkward, a soft and gentle female voice suddenly came from inside the room. Ling Yuan, why is it so lively here today? Is everyone here? Linda has arrived. She is widely recognized in the circle as a beauty with an elegant temperament. Unlike those socialites who are always dressed in the latest designer brands, she rarely wears trendy luxury items, having been immersed in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting since childhood. Most of her outfits are custom-made Chinese-style cheongsams, tailored to complement her refined demeanor. As a result, she has been hailed by the media as the last jasmine in the world of fame and fortune. But probably only I know in this world, the heart of this jasmine flower is black. However, this black-hearted jasmine did something good for once today. Her appearance at least broke the eerie atmosphere in the office. Harrison Thomas maintained his usual attitude towards her. He glanced at her leisurely, with a malicious sneer. "Oh, the ferry has floated over." The sarcastic tone could be smelled from 10 miles away. "Brother Harrison Thomas, it's been so long since we last met, and you're still so good at joking," Harrison Thomas reminded. "Don't just call me brother so casually, you're actually a year and a half older than me, Harrison Thomas. I'm sorry to see you flirting like this, with a face like that. Yet you've been single your whole life, you deserve it." Just as expected, faced with Harrison Thomas's blatant provocation of "I'm just going to oppose you," a flicker of displeasure flashed in Linda's eyes, but it quickly returned to a gentle and considerate expression. She quietly walked over to Daniel Foster and took his arm. She had a clear sense of judgment in her heart, shrewd as she was. "I come from a humble background and can be easily humiliated. But she absolutely cannot afford to offend Harrison Thomas, a big shot." She rolled her eyes, probably holding back a breath of anger, and subtly shifted the topic to me. "The scapegoat, Assistant Natalie. It's rare for the three of us to gather together. Could you go make coffee for us? It's been a long time since I've had your coffee. The servants at home just can't seem to master your skill, and I miss it so much." Look, that's pretty much how it is. Over the years, she has always praised me openly, whether intentionally or not, but in reality, she seizes every opportunity to remind me of my status, because she hates me, to the point where she wishes she could kill me. When it comes to offending her, I am even more wronged. Daniel Foster once used me as a reason to reject Linda's pursuit, and her hatred for me was built from that moment. She even came to see me in person. I still remember that day was a rainy night. She had probably just finished practicing calligraphy, with a conspicuous drop of ink staining the cuff of her white silk sleeve. She smiled as she carefully cut off the piece of clothing stained with ink using scissors, her expression focused, as if she were crafting a piece of art. But the next second, she pulled out a lighter. I watched helplessly as the flame licked at the fabric, burning fiercely. In the end, it turned to ashes at my feet. A flicker of firelight and a flash of lightning outside the window simultaneously illuminated her beautiful face, highlighting her almost morbid ferocity. "Natalie, Linda, have had a dazzling career in the stars, but losing to you, the child of a servant, is a stain on my life. Guess, will I personally erase you like this?" Linda's possessiveness towards Daniel Foster had become almost pathological. Back then, she volunteered to teach my younger sister Anna calligraphy. Just as everyone was praising Linda for being willing to lower herself to teach the nanny's child how to write, calling her beautiful, kind-hearted, and approachable, only I knew that on the very first day of class, she used red ink to draw a large cross on Anna's wrist. Along with the 4 treasures of the study she gifted, there was also a sharp paper-cutting knife. In the end, I didn't have the courage to overestimate my own strength, and I didn't dare to use my sister as a bet, so, as she wished, I broke up with Daniel Foster. When we broke up, Daniel Foster seemed genuinely hurt. The corners of his eyes were slightly red, and he asked me several times in a row, "Natalie Lawson, are you playing with me?" I casually agreed. Just like that, I, the big fool, not only offended Linda but also managed to offend Daniel Foster, whose pride is higher than the sky. Truly reckless in my youth, if given another chance to choose, I really wouldn't want to provoke any of them, so at this moment, facing the request to escape the battlefield by making coffee, I readily agreed. As I was slipping away, Harrison Thomas blocked my path. I frowned, signaling for him to let me pass, but he grabbed my wrist instead, a smile spreading across his face, yet his tone carried an undeniable air of dominance. "Linda, I'm back now. Isn't it a bit inappropriate for you to order Natalie Lawson around right in front of me? What's your relationship with Natalie Lawson?" Linda furrowed her beautiful willow leaf brows. Though she was asking Harrison Thomas, her gaze drifted toward Daniel Foster beside him. Daniel Foster was staring intently at the spot where Harrison Thomas was gripping my wrist, his face visibly darkening as if a brewing undercurrent was gathering. Harrison Thomas took in the expressions of the two individuals, a faint, inscrutable smile playing at the corner of his lips. "Ling Yuan, people are naturally protective of their own. Your fiancé's attitude when speaking to Natalie Lawson was truly offensive. I have no right to interfere in your family matters, but I must stand up for Natalie Lawson, and, Linda, sooner or later, you'll be calling shining sister-in-law. Before I get angry, please remember your place, okay?" Harrison Thomas. "You don't actually like Linda, Are you just using me to make her jealous? I was completely baffled when I sat in Harrison Thomas's flashy sports car, and I couldn't help but voice this question. Actually, I was still quite puzzled. First, I was curious about why he would like Linda. Second, I wondered why, when immortals fight, little ghosts suffer, why drag me into it? But when he heard this question, his expression was extremely aggrieved. Just moments ago, he was dominating the scene with an overwhelming presence, but now, sitting in the driver's seat, he stammered me for a long time without making any sense. Finally, taking advantage of the red light, he turned off the music and managed to blurt out, "Not all men are childish, Natalie Lawson, you need to be more careful." His demeanor completely cut off the rest of what I was about to say. I had originally intended to advise him to open his eyes and take a closer look at Linda's true nature, but the intense push from the sudden acceleration and his tense jawline made me realize that this moody young master was in a foul mood. In the end, I still turned off the mic in confusion. Harrison Thomas's destination was a clay pot restaurant on the back street of our old high school. That back street had all kinds of food, and back then, we even called it Wall Street of City A, at the time. There was even a popular saying among us, students from poor families at a city #1 high school cannot do without Wall Street, just as the West cannot do without Jerusalem. Why is it specifically the poor students? Because 2/3 of the students at #1 high school come from wealthy families who prioritize quality of life. They demand pesticide-free vegetables and air-freighted meat. With such intense competition, the cafeteria prices have become outrageously expensive. As students from average families who got in on academic merit, we, the minority, had no choice but to compromise and sacrifice a dozen minutes to eat out. Speaking of which, back then, Daniel Foster was quite opposed to me eating on back street. He would often say to me, intentionally or not, eating greasy, salty food isn't healthy, you should stay and eat in the cafeteria. I can get you another meal card if needed. If we eat together, we can spend more time discussing math. Wouldn't that be better? Of course, I knew his intentions were good, but every time he says this, I always feel more keenly the reality that we are not from the same world. The butlers and nannies in the mansion walk at least 20,000 steps every day. With such hard work, they simply can't keep up their strength without some extra benefits. He doesn't understand this. It's not the ignorance of why not eat meat porridge, but simply the innocence of having lived in the clouds for too long. But back then, we truly liked each other. Proud as he was, he also made efforts for our relationship. He once accompanied me to have a meal in the back street, even though that very afternoon, he ended up in the hospital due to a bout of gastroenteritis, although he repeatedly told me afterwards that his gastroenteritis was a chronic issue, unrelated to me, and that I shouldn't overthink it. But this incident inevitably became a hidden scar for me. One that I could only bury deep in my heart and never speak of. To be honest, letting go of this unfulfilled first love wasn't particularly difficult for me, because looking back now, there were simply too many obstacles standing between us. The inherent gap does not deepen the bond between us, it only adds to the weight of my inferiority time and again, leaving me bruised and battered. So now, when I think back on these things, all that remains for this relationship are some insignificant sighs. This story was truly destined from the very beginning. Coming from the same background, Harrison Thomas is completely different. Back in the day, I often spotted Harrison Thomas on Wall Street. We met at Chen's Clay Pot. He was probably the only young master who would walk for over 10 minutes under the scorching sun just to eat at back street. One time when he came over to share my table with a basketball in his arms, I couldn't help but ask him, "Why don't you eat in the cafeteria?" The cafeteria has a pleasant environment, elegant music, and central air conditioning. Here, there's only an old, poorly maintained air conditioner that doesn't cool, a room full of noise, and low-quality food loaded with MSG and chicken bouillon. However, he gave me a strange look, put down his chopsticks, folded his hands, and asked me quite matter-of-factly, "What, do you think only you can be a Wall Street elite? Natalie, don't label me with anything, I only follow my heart, self." Flamboyant, willful, and unrestrained, this is indeed a very Harrison Thomas-like answer. The warmth of everyday life is what truly soothes the ordinary heart. Returning to campus inevitably stirs up a mix of emotions in my heart, but when the shop owner's wife brought over 2 steaming bowls of clay pot vermicelli, calling out in a familiar northern accent, "Here you go," all the emo feelings vanished into thin air. The person sharing Chen's clay pot with me hasn't changed. And the clay pot vermicelli, glistening with oil and sprinkled with scallions, remains the same. Thinking about it this way, it seems time hasn't taken away too much after all. To my surprise, the shop owner actually recognized us. In fact, she recognized Harrison Thomas first. Then, when she saw me, her eyes lit up even more. After exclaiming oh for a while, she broke into a cheerful laugh. "Handsome young man, Auntie remembers you so well. Back then, you came to my place, eating noodles while crying so sadly. Who would have thought you'd eventually wait for your true love, Auntie?" I continued eating my noodles, waiting to hear the rest of the story, but Auntie's follow-up was interrupted by Harrison Thomas's flustered voice from across the table. That loud cry of "Auntie" made half the people in the room turn to look at us. The curious gazes came all at once. And even someone like me, who's been through years of social ups and downs, couldn't help but feel a bit awkward. However, he merely cast an uncomfortable glance at my face. My face was probably slightly flushed from the heat. He cleared his throat lightly and said, "Sorry, I'm a bit hungry and didn't control my volume. Auntie, could you please add fried eggs for both of us, after the meal?" I thought Harrison Thomas would take me to sneak into the campus to reminisce about our youth or something like that. I didn't expect him to turn around and take me straight to a bar. Right after graduation, I became an on-call 24/7 assistant, so this was my first chance to go to a bar, and it felt quite novel. I didn't know anyone at the booth. They were probably another circle of Harrison Thomas's friends. Seeing that I was brought by Harrison Thomas, everyone was very warm and attentive toward me, making sure I didn't feel awkward at all. But I didn't want to drink, so I buried my head in the fruit platter. The girl next to me, seeing this, enthusiastically pushed another fruit platter in front of me. "Are you a fruit platter killer too? The mango is so sweet today, give it a try." A sweet, cloying fruit fragrance drifted into my nose. I remembered the miserable experience last time when Daniel Foster and Linda forced me to finish the mango sago dessert, which caused me to break out in a full-body rash. Couldn't help but shiver. Was about to refuse. Harrison Thomas, who was playing dice beside me, somehow overheard the conversation at my end and, quicker than me, reached out to push the fruit platter away. "The young lady is allergic to mangoes. She can't eat them." "Why do you know I'm allergic to mangoes?" I looked at Harrison Thomas with confusion. I don't remember telling him about this. He glanced at me sideways, giving me a slight smile, and between shaking the dice, the chaotic pink and purple lights in the bar made the darkness in his eyes appear even more serene. "Because not everyone is as heartless as you, little shining." This simple address pulled me into a whirlpool of memories. How long has it been since I last heard someone call me that? After Harrison Thomas went abroad to study following the college entrance exams, in high school, Harrison Thomas loved to call me Natalie, little friend, even though he was a month younger than me. It was a very special tone, his voice sticky, with the ending drawn out very, very long. Every time I heard it, I would blush and tell him to keep his voice down, but it went in one ear and out the other, and he only called out even more energetically. I protested indignantly many times. "Harrison Thomas, why are you so mature when talking to others, but always so childish with me?" And he would often laugh, with the spirited air of a young man, his proud and handsome face lifting at the corners of his eyebrows when he smiled. "I don't know, maybe I always think of you as a kid, especially the kind who loves to act like an adult." At this thought, a sentence suddenly popped into my mind. Life truly has many moments that, at the time, seemed utterly ordinary. Now, looking back on these memories, each moment feels so vivid and alive, with even the slight arch of Harrison Thomas's brow and the movement of his Adam's apple clear in my mind. Yet, back then, how could I have been so completely indifferent to it all? Thinking and thinking. It's midnight. The originally clear and rhythmic hip-hop rock music changed its style, turning into a soothing musical prelude. The stage's ambiguous pink-purple lights were replaced with a blue starry sky ceiling, creating a hazy and romantic atmosphere. The resident singer is a beautiful young woman with short hair and red lips, carrying a guitar onto the stage. "Good evening everyone. Tonight's midnight song is A Little Happiness, requested by Mr. Anonymous from Zone V. On behalf of Nightfall Bar, Amy wishes all lovers in the world a happy ending." Mr. Anonymous also wants to say to the girl in his heart, "It's been 10 years, if time won't wait for anyone, I'll wait for you." The entire venue erupted in an uproar. Could the most sentimental place have witnessed a decade-long deep affection? My gossip-loving soul awakened, and I widened my eyes, patting Harrison Thomas beside me, my tone excited. Is there really someone in this world who can love a person for 10 years? I thought deeply affectionate men were already extinct. He remained unmoved, sinking into the sofa of the booth, smoking, his expression flickering between light and shadow. He lightly shifted his gaze to my face and chuckled softly. Who knows, maybe there really is such a fool. The stage is set for the home performance. Her smoky voice carries a sense of weathered stories. The rendition of A Little Happiness sheds some of the youthful innocence of campus romance, revealing a touch of adult longing and hope. Why didn't I realize I had met you? It's the best thing in life. Maybe I was busy smiling and crying, busy chasing shooting stars in the sky. People naturally forget, who is it that stands guard in the wind and rain? Always silently waiting in place. Perhaps the song is too moving. Or perhaps everyone has a little missed fortune in their heart. The bar, which had just been lively and wild moments ago, was now immersed in a melancholic mood with the song. How does that saying go? The worst thing is when a bar suddenly gets sentimental, everything aligned perfectly, in such an atmosphere. It's almost inevitable for everyone to think of their exes amidst the melodious singing, yet I can't understand why the person who comes to mind at this moment isn't Daniel Foster. As if possessed, I turned to look at Harrison Thomas sitting beside me, and just like that, I happened to meet his smiling gaze. In the chorus at the booth, I don't know how long he had been quietly resting his head on his hand, watching me. It must have been the alcohol, for his eyes were excessively bright. The moment our gazes met, he raised an eyebrow and smiled. With a slyness that suggested a scheme had succeeded, I saw him mouthing words at me. He said, "This song," I requested. We locked eyes for what felt like an eternity. The surroundings faded, and the music gradually softened. The overhead light outlined his delicate features. My eyelids fluttered, and I struggled to look away. How strange. It seemed as if the sound of my heartbeat was about to drown out the noise of the bar. I was in a daze. As the song ended, my phone rang, completely ruining the moment. The screen displayed Boss Foster. My thoughts instantly cleared, and my body stiffened as I hesitated over whether to answer. Harrison Thomas put down the dice cup in his hand and suddenly patted me. He tilted his head, leaned close to my ear, and smiled with a hint of mischief. "Little Natalie, do you want to get back at Daniel Foster?" Looking back on it later, I think it must have been the alcohol-laced breath he exhaled that made me dizzy. I actually agreed to him. The method Harrison Thomas mentioned to help me was truly mind-blowing. He leisurely answered the phone, took my phone over to a couple beside him who were moved by the love song and passionately kissing. He recorded the sound of their lips touching in real time for over 10 seconds. Feeling it was about enough, he brought the phone back to his ear and said to the person on the other end, "It's me, I'm busy, don't disturb." After a series of dramatic maneuvers, he smoothly ended the call and handed my phone back to me as if nothing had happened. Witnessing it all, I was utterly shocked, and my reputation was tarnished. Who will speak for me? Warmth kept rising to my face. I was both anxious and embarrassed. "Harrison Thomas, what good deed have you done?" He innocently picked up the crystal wine glass on the table, took a sip of wine, and smiled, still bitterly regretting. "Ah, what a shame I couldn't record it myself, little shining. I really did a good deed. Someone's going to have a sleepless night tonight. If it weren't for brothers understanding brothers." Harrison Thomas's words came true. Daniel Foster truly did not sleep well. I played all night, and it wasn't until I got home in the early hours of the morning and charged my phone that I saw over 30 missed calls. There were also 99 plus unread messages on WeChat. He sent a few photos. The scene shows a meticulously arranged seaside hotel suite. Balloons and rose petals cover the floor, along with 9,999 roses, a cake, candles arranged in the shape of LSN, and even photos of me, from childhood, middle school, and university. So, Linda wasn't at the hotel that day. Did he want to get back together with me? That was close. I almost got fooled. With mixed feelings, I tapped to delete the photo. I slept soundly through the night without any dreams. The next afternoon, the sunlight from outside the window gently fell on my bed, and I finally opened my eyes, still drowsy. Somehow, I'm in an exceptionally good mood today. It's the weekend. As usual, I went home to see my parents and my younger sister, Anna. The Foster family's residence is located in the best area of the city, a hillside villa, far from the hustle and bustle. Any tree in the courtyard costs millions. My childhood was spent in a low house next to the villa. The Foster family prefers tranquility, so they arranged the servants' quarters outside the main house. Although the space was not large, it was still quite cozy since the whole family lived together. In their wealthy circles, there's a saying, how you treat your subordinates determines your stature. It's evident that the Foster family has already reached a position of chilling isolation. No wonder my parents have remained loyal to the Foster family their entire lives. When I got home, only Annan was there. She obediently sat at the desk, learning Braille. I gently patted her back, her eyes lit up. And she waved vigorously at me before throwing herself into my arms. She told me in sign language, Sister Linda, and Brother Harrison Thomas are coming today, so Mom and Dad are very busy. Only Annan is waiting for you. Annan is a very well-behaved and beautiful little girl. Many people say she is fortunate, having caught the eye of the young lady of the Foster family, yet, in reality, everyone who has interacted with her can't help but praise her maturity and intelligence. Annan is the reason I have to stay with the Foster family. She is my biological younger sister, a child born deaf and mute. Coincidentally, Daniel Foster had a cousin named Tina who was in the same situation as Anna. They shared the same circumstances and the same age, which fostered a deep mutual understanding. Tina, who had always been gloomy and listless, saw a ray of sunshine in Anna from the moment they met. They became fast friends and were inseparable ever since. Daniel Foster's aunt, who had been constantly worried about Tina's personality issues, saw the two playing on the seesaw together. Her eyes lit up instantly, and she regarded Anna as a lifeline. Annan also benefited from the young lady's good fortune. She followed her in receiving training from top domestic rehabilitation therapists and in having a cutting-edge, expensive cochlear implant. These are things we could not have provided for Annan with our own abilities. Linda had precisely calculated this, so back then, after she threatened me, when I begged my parents to take Anna and leave the Foster family, my parents didn't even consider it. They refused outright. Faced with my persistence, my mother even had a private, worried conversation with me. Natalie, have you been wronged in any way by President Foster? Can you talk to Mom about it? It's your dad and I who have let you down, making such a good child like you suffer and endure hardships. Mom grew more and more heartbroken as she spoke. I saw the calluses covering her hands as she wiped away her tears, and my heart ached with sorrow. I realized that I truly didn't have the ability to provide a better life for my parents and Annan after leaving the Foster family. So after that, I started working tirelessly to earn money and save every penny I could. My parents haven't replied to my WeChat messages all afternoon, and they're nowhere to be seen. It seems like today is some sort of gathering day, as everyone has shown up. So they are especially busy. The youngest daughter of the Foster family, Tina, also came and immediately insisted on seeing Anna. I accompanied Anna to the main entrance and then quickly slipped away, but in the end, I was still a step too late. Just as I was turning to leave, a lazy male voice overflowing from the room called out to me, "Where are you going?" As if he had guessed in advance that I would make a run for it. Harrison Thomas came out specifically to meet me, from a distance. I could see the dark bruise on his cheekbone. I stared strangely at his injured face, because that wound really didn't look like it was from a collision, it looked like it was from a fight. But in this world, what man nearly 30 years old would get into a fight and end up disfigured for no reason, especially since it's that arrogant Harrison Thomas. He knows I'm looking at his wound, yet he deliberately leaves it uncovered for me to see. I hear his voice getting closer, warm and familiar. "Natalie, since you're here, join us for a meal." There's no need to be so polite with me when it comes to the enthusiastic gesture of inviting guests to stay. Upon hearing this, the once joyful and harmonious atmosphere in the inner room's parlor fell into complete silence. I could even imagine countless pairs of eyes turning toward the doorway. My heart instinctively tightened as I glanced at Harrison Thomas, yet, he remained unmoved and unyielding, as if determined to keep me there. He stood firmly in front of me, his peach blossom eyes curved, shimmering with a smile. In the end, I was the one who gave in. He led me through the door with a carefree air, innocently flashing a harmless smile at Daniel Foster's parents inside the house. "Uncle, Auntie, I hope you don't mind if I bring my family along." I didn't even have time to object. Crash, a crisp sound rang out. The blue and white porcelain teacup in Daniel Foster's hand shattered on the floor. Tea stains spread across his shirt. "Sorry, my hand slipped," Daniel Foster said. Daniel Foster returned to his room to change clothes without a word, leaving behind a heavy silence. Sitting on the sofa, feeling the curious and probing gazes from all directions, I experienced the phrase "sitting on pins and needles" more vividly than ever before in my life. Everyone in the room, except for Anna and Tina who were hiding aside putting together a puzzle, had their own hidden agendas, each with a different expression. Only Harrison Thomas beside me wore a smile on his lips from beginning to end. I was so embarrassed I could dig a hole in the ground with my toes. Completely clueless about what he was so happy about. Here, shining, have some osmanthus cake. I brought the chef all the way from Hangzhou. In front of everyone, he casually and naturally handed a piece of cake to my lips, further emphasizing our intimacy. I awkwardly took it. Daniel Foster's mother, Mrs. Foster, took all of this in, exchanged a glance with her husband, and couldn't help but ask, "Ah Sien, are you and Natalie together? Have you told your parents?" Harrison Thomas nodded, then shook his head, his tone wistful. "My parents have known I liked Natalie Lawson for 10 years. As for whether she's willing to be with me, Auntie, why don't you ask Natalie for me? 10 years ago, back in high school, it's probably because teenage girls all have a sense of avoiding suspicion. Since my feelings for Daniel Foster weren't exactly pure, I usually kept closer to Harrison Thomas. To be fair, getting along with Harrison Thomas is actually much easier than dealing with Daniel Foster. Daniel Foster comes from a proper background, is meticulous, and follows rules everywhere. But Harrison Thomas is carefree and has no taboos. When the two of us get together, the most frequent activity is having him copy my homework. The accident happened one day when the two of us were in a coffee shop, and he was copying my homework. It was right after a short holiday, and the homework had piled up like a mountain. While copying my work, Harrison Thomas was so frantic that his pen seemed to be on fire. Just a second earlier, he had been sighing, "Little Natalie, what would I do without you?" The next second, a draft paper filled with Daniel Foster's name slipped out from a stack of test papers. It's no exaggeration to say that the air seemed to freeze for about 10 seconds. Harrison Thomas's previously cheerful expression darkened the moment he clearly saw the words on the paper. His slender fingers gripped the thin sheet of paper, the tips turning white. When he looked up at me again, his eyes had become calm and unreadable, as if suppressing something. "Do you like him?" My feelings for Daniel Foster are at most some ambiguous, unclear crush. Having it brought up openly for the first time, my face flushed so red it felt like it was dripping blood. Embarrassed, I snatched the draft paper back from his hand and stuffed it into my school bag. The spot he had pinched was already crumpled, uncomfortable. I tried to change the subject. "All right, if you want to copy the homework, hurry up, I still have to go to class later." But he remained rigidly seated in place, not even changing the posture in which he had been holding the paper. He seemed not to hear my words and pressed on, asking, "What do you like about him?" To be honest, I hadn't really thought carefully about what exactly I liked about Daniel Foster. When it comes to love, I am actually quite clueless. I once read a book. It discussed why love in the classic sense has been such a fascinating topic throughout history. Because the relationship of being in love creates an exceptional state. No matter how ordinary you are among the masses, within a romantic relationship, you can still be someone's one and only. Sometimes, people fall in love with someone simply because they lack the thrill of being recognized, so I think that's probably why I fell for Daniel Foster. It was when Linda secretly spread the news that I was a houseborn servant of the Foster family. And someone slipped a note with insults on it during my PE class. He, who always advocates making the most of every minute and second, unexpectedly spent an entire day of break time with a cold expression, reviewing the footage retrieved from the surveillance room. Frame by frame, he searched until he identified those individuals. That was probably the biggest outburst I, and all the other students, had ever seen from him. With Daniel Foster stepping up, I received a grand and formal apology. Afterward, with a heart full of gratitude, I bought a pack of candy to thank him. He reached out to take the candy while still focused on solving the math problem, smiling gently and calmly. "Natalie, you've always been the most outstanding girl I've ever met. Don't listen to those rumors. I'll take the candy. If you really want to thank me, let's both aim for university together." The warm afternoon sunlight fell on his usually indifferent face. My heart skipped a beat. At my most disheveled moment, someone was willing to stand up for me. A heart full of gratitude turned into a pink, girlish heart in that instant. That's a perfectly reasonable reason to be moved, isn't it? After I finished saying all that, Harrison Thomas lowered his head and curled the corner of his mouth. He asked me one last question in a hoarse voice. His voice was very soft as he said, "Natalie, do you think you might not understand your own heart?" I instinctively shook my head. That's when Harrison Thomas started treating me differently. He never copied my homework again, and he never called me little kid again. We just lost contact like that, until a few years later, I accidentally found an unread message in my phone's trash folder. From his first year studying abroad in college, he said, "If you're not happy, this isn't over." When it was time to eat, the meal began. Daniel Foster and Linda arrived late. Daniel Foster never looked up at us for a second from start to finish, only the motion of cutting the steak was stiff and slow. Linda tucked her hair behind her ear, still with that composed demeanor, and looked at Harrison Thomas. "Brother Harrison Thomas, aren't you going to invite your future father-in-law and mother-in-law to join us for dinner?" I looked up at her, and she smiled back at me, her eyes filled with undisguised provocation. I understood what Linda meant. She knows that my parents' status doesn't allow them to sit at the table for a meal. Yet she deliberately chose to humiliate me and my family by saying this. I took a deep breath, my left hand already clenched into a fist under the table. Harrison Thomas, sitting beside me, noticed my anger and quietly placed his hand over mine to calm me down. His voice was as warm as the temperature of his palm, comforting and soothing. With a casual glance, he replied to Linda on my behalf. "My in-laws, they're at my place. You asked why my parents aren't coming today, right? What a coincidence. Today is also the day my parents are meeting my future in-laws." I never expected to receive such a reply. Linda's smile instantly froze on her face. I was taken aback, unable to hold back a smile as I shook my head. This Harrison Thomas. After the meal, Harrison Thomas took me to the beach. We happened to catch the sunset glow, and under the orange evening sky, a band was singing on the beach. The song drifted into my ears along with the cool sea breeze. It was A Little Happiness again. Different from what I heard in the bar that day. The lead singer was a beautiful girl with braided hair. Her voice was as sweet as if it had rolled in a pile of candy, interpreting the song with a different kind of romance. I was stunned for a moment and turned to look at Harrison Thomas beside me. He looked in the direction of the singing, smiled lazily, and raised his hands. "Don't look at me. I didn't pay anyone to arrange it this time." "Oh," I replied, my voice slightly tight, and kept walking with my head down. My mind must have been wandering elsewhere. Before I knew it, I stumbled into a waist-deep sand pit someone had dug, and the cold seawater made me shiver involuntarily. The soaked clothes turned translucent, clinging tightly to my skin. "This is so embarrassing." Blushing, I looked up at Harrison Thomas for help. He looked at me with a brilliant smile, his clear eyes slightly upturned in a phoenix shape. The next second, he followed me and jumped into this big puddle. "Harrison Thomas, are you a pig? Who jumps into a puddle on their own?" I looked at Harrison Thomas, who was just as soaked as I was, feeling both annoyed and amused. He just shrugged it off without a care. "You're too thin-skinned. Wouldn't it be better to have someone else share your embarrassment?" "It doesn't matter. If it's you, I'd jump into a fire pit too." I stared at him in a daze. He looked back at me unhurriedly, his gaze gradually growing intense, his heavy emotions laid bare, surging like the sea. Everything seemed to move in slow motion, just like in a movie. His tone was sincere, devout. "Natalie, it's been 10 years. Could you turn around and try to see me?" Under the setting sun, everything seemed veiled in a thin gauze, yet his clear, powerful voice cut through like a skylight. The salty, damp sea breeze brought a hint of restlessness, stirring my heart along with it. Harrison Thomas stood silently across from me, not saying a word. He forced a relaxed smile, revealing a set of bright white teeth. "Actually, it's fine if you don't want to. It's been so many years. I hugged him tightly. Our chests pressed close together. For some reason, I suddenly felt the urge to cry. I heard my own voice trembling. "Harrison Thomas, thank you. Thank you for coming to love me. The weekend is over." I submitted my resignation letter to Daniel Foster. "This has nothing to do with whether I am in love or not. This resignation letter was written by me as early as 3 months ago. This decision has also been made after careful consideration. After all, I am already 28 years old. And the efforts of these years have given me the strength to bear the cost of my sister's treatment and my own tuition for studying abroad. The past 20+ years have been too exhausting, and I want to live for myself for a while." Unexpectedly, Daniel Foster agreed quite readily. He took the resignation letter and smiled self-mockingly. "This is probably my retribution." I couldn't be bothered to deal with him. My heart filled with thoughts of freedom. I smiled politely and said, "Thank you, President Foster." As I turned to leave, Daniel Foster called out to stop me. "Natalie, Linda has a history of drug use abroad and has already been detained. This news might bring you some comfort. I also know about her threatening you with an N. I don't know what's wrong with me either. Maybe I just couldn't accept the fact that you don't love me, so I ended up doing so many things to hurt you. You're a very capable girl, and I'm sorry for holding you back all these years. I wish you happiness." I stopped in my tracks. For this apology that has been so long overdue, I thought in my heart, but in the end, I still didn't say anything. I have excellent grades and am an upright person. My parents are good people who work hard to earn money and support the family. Although my sister is a deaf-mute child, she is innocent and kind, clever and eager to learn. We care for and support each other, which is what makes a truly wonderful family. I have never felt inferior because of my family background. Now, even the last bit of restraint is gone. I look out at the steel forest outside the window, a scene of prosperity, a vast and boundless world, where the sky is high enough for birds to fly freely, and the sea is wide enough for fish to leap. No need for Daniel Foster to say it. Of course, I will live a very happy life from now on. As for Harrison Thomas and me, in his words, it's good food is worth waiting for. And a good match is never too late. Surprisingly, he, the clingy one, actually supports my decision to study abroad. I remember the first time I told him about this, he just froze for 2 seconds. After processing it, he gave a generous smile. "Natalie, my love will never stand in the way of you pursuing a better future. I'll just wait for you in that better future." He thought he was putting on a good act, but his increasingly red eyes had already betrayed his true feelings. On the day he took me to the airport, Harrison Thomas's generosity finally couldn't hold up any longer. One moment he was saying, go ahead, I'm not the least bit sad." The next moment, as I turned to leave for the boarding gate, he grumbled discontentedly, "Wait, you're really leaving?" and then pulled me into his arms. This hug carried immense weight, so heavy that even though my ribs ached, I couldn't bear to let go for a second. He buried his chin in the crook of my shoulder. His voice muffled and tinged with a sob. "Sigh, never mind, I've waited 10 years, a few more won't make a difference. Waiting is my destiny. Finish your studies and come back soon. And, stop reading all that toxic advice about cutting ties with loved ones once you've made it." "Got it," I cried and laughed in his arms, nodding heavily. It was only later that I realized the tears I shed that day were all in vain. I basically just took a fake study leave. Harrison Thomas would fly his private jet to London to see me every other day, and later even stationed himself at the UK branch. He visited me so frequently that I had to keep enough food for 2 at home, just in case he showed up unannounced. Even so, he always jokingly called himself a husband-waiting stone. Such a clingy person, I can't stand it at all. Harrison Thomas is not only clingy, but also full of tricks. One day, after finishing my class, I opened social media as usual to catch up on the latest happenings back home. A notification suddenly popped up on the burner account I've been using for years. "Natalie's Harrison, at Ivy, look at me, wifey." Over 3,000 social media bio reads, documenting the long journey of pursuing my wife. 2023, 4/20. After thinking for a long time, I finally decided to return to China, today. I waited at Daniel Foster's company in trance for 2 hours, faking a chance encounter with Natalie Lawson. It's really about fulfilling a dream, wanting to see with my own eyes what she would be like at work. Annoying, she really does look great in professional attire. 2023, 4/24. Fortunately, the hotel Daniel Foster chose is owned by my family's business. I rushed over just in time to block Natalie Lawson at the entrance of the lobby. Almost got my home stolen, also. It's a real shame I didn't take a photo with my phone. I took the wine upstairs, and the confused look Daniel Foster gave me while standing in the rose petals really cracked me up. Seeing my rival use such corny methods to pursue someone makes me feel much better. 2023, 4/25. Natalie Lawson actually thought I liked Linda. Well, all those years of secret pining were for nothing. Whatever. After a lifetime of misdeeds, killing people like crazy in games, falling for a clueless straight girl is exactly what I deserve. 2023, 4/25. Today at Chen's clay pot, the aunt almost exposed the time when I found out Natalie Lawson and Daniel Foster were together, and I came here alone like a dog, crying while eating noodles. My cool, handsome image almost crumbled. That was close. So it wasn't that the clay pot was delicious. It was that as long as I could be with her, anything tasted good. 2023, 4/25. Time waits for no one, but I'll wait for you. Buddy, the wife-watching stone is all about patience. 2023, 4/26. Today's happy event, I got into a fight with Daniel Foster. I'd been wanting to punch this guy for a while. He couldn't even see through Linda's true nature, and while I was away, he joined Linda in mistreating Natalie Lawson. So satisfying, fist emoji. After the fight, the two of us sat together and talked all night. In the end, he said to me, "To be honest, back in high school, when you chased after me, grabbed my sleeve, and told me to treat Natalie Lawson well, I actually felt kind of sorry for you. I just never imagined that, after all these twists and turns, I'm no longer the one who can bring him happiness." Too dramatic. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Bro, I gave you a chance, but you just couldn't handle it. 2023, 4/27. I heard that as soon as my parents sat down, they asked Natalie's parents if a 66 million dowry was enough, which really shocked them. So embarrassing. I'm not the kind of guy who loses his cool so easily. How could I have such disappointing parents? 2023, 5/2. Today at the supermarket, I saw the shelves and suddenly remembered the time Daniel Foster deliberately annoyed Natalie by asking her to buy condoms for him, and then I said she should just get the extra small size. What's going on? Harrison Thomas, serves you right for having a girlfriend. 2023, 6/1. Happy holidays, little Natalie. I bought you your favorite cake today, and you were smiling so happily. 2023, 12/24. Coming to see my wife for Christmas. My wife complains about the heavy snow, but I think as long as you're by my side, even snowy days are good weather. My hand trembles as I swipe the screen. It took over 3 hours, scrolling from this year all the way back to 10 years ago, over 3,000 social media posts, spanning a decade of time. Everything about the two of us, down to the smallest detail. And all his joys and sorrows were completely influenced by me. Social media scrolled to the bottom. Tears in my eyes had long blurred my vision. I suddenly remembered that I had asked Harrison Thomas in the bar what kind of man would love a woman for 10 years. I was so foolish that I didn't even realize such a person had always been right by my side. I was so foolish that I didn't know the best was already by my side. It turns out that even before I knew what love was, there was already someone who loved me so passionately and uniquely. Harrison Thomas, we really are a perfect match in our foolishness. Days filled with hope and pursuits are fulfilling. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. On the day of my graduation ceremony, the weather in England was uncharacteristically clear. Harrison Thomas brought my parents, who had never been abroad before, and an in to attend my graduation ceremony. Blue sky, flowers, graduation gown, family, and loved ones. These were things I had only dared to imagine in my dreams, and one day, they truly stepped from the realm of dreams into reality. I thought all of this was already unrealistically happy, until Harrison Thomas, holding a large bouquet of flowers, just like the way he sent me abroad years ago, gave me a big hug. With a gentle smile in his eyes, he took a diamond ring from his pocket and knelt on one knee before me. Happy graduation, my little lucky lady. My lifelong commitment is of the utmost urgency, so, may I ask, is it my turn now? After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.